Our fathers knew that an enemy was coming, and they didn't want that enemy to profit from the best of their knowledge, so they buried it under sand, under the sea, and under jungles, and then put a pyramid out there and a lion out there with the head of a black man on it in the desert to let all the world know that this black man is Abu el-Hawl. He's the father of the globe. He's the father of everything. And in due season, he will rise again.
Peace, love, and light, and black power. It's BABATV, which you know is fire every time. It's Brother Sankofa. We out here in Boston, Mass, on location, on the ground, in Roxbury. Once again, yes, right. Linux projects in the background. Shout out to the L. But we want to give a little historical backdrop to this neighborhood as we travel through Boston, the historic Boston, the city of first. Not only was the first library, first Ivy League university, first police force started here, the first slaves was brought here. You know what I'm saying? Not only that, some of our greatest leaders come from out of here. Roxbury, Lower Roxbury. Who are we talking about today in Lower Roxbury? As you see, we're going to specifically talk about Louis Farrakhan, who came from this neighborhood originally known as Lower Roxbury, right? That's right. This is also known as you can zoom in right there, Baba. Welcome to Lower Roxbury, the historic Douglas Square. See, now Frederick Douglass has a lot of history in this community. That's right. Frederick Douglass. Not only that, Harriet Tubman has a lot of historic relevance and legacy and adage to the historicity of this community right here in Frederick Douglass Square in Lower Roxbury as we're here on Tremont Street. So let's go right in. Now the neighborhood looks a lot different than what it initially looked like 30, 40, 50 years, 70, 80 years ago. You can go back even further than that. I said 30, 40. More like 70, 80 years ago. Now, in this area known as Lower Roxbury, right, which is closer to downtown, more adjacent to downtown than the heart of Roxbury or the interiors of Roxbury, right here was a predominantly West Indian and Caribbean community. A predominantly Caribbean community at a certain point in history, okay? Out of that Caribbean community came the Garveyite movement. To go back a little further, a lot of the Caribbeans started to come and congregate and network and commune in this area, right? Because a lot of them are coming to America getting jobs as nannies and other types of jobs. And as a result, many of them formed in different locations, such as you had them in Brooklyn and other places in the country. But this is one of the oldest Caribbean communities in the country. And one of the people that came out of that Caribbean community, although originally born in the Bronx, New York, Louis Eugene Walcott. Louis Eugene Walcott, who became later known as Louis X, then Louis Farrakhan. This community in Boston spawned him, formed many of his formative years and his younger experiences, from academia to going into being a violinist, a track runner, a person that went to Boston English High School and excelled academically and excelled in the arts as a violinist, excelled in physical athleticism as a track runner. The brother, Louis Eugene Walcott, was a well-rounded, you can tell he was meant to be, fashioned to be the great leader that he definitely is this day. And we're going to just basically take you on a historical backdrop into some of the earlier years, the formative years of the Honorable Great Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, excuse me. So right around this area, you would have something called the Liberty Hall. Okay, the Liberty Hall is where a lot of the people in the West Indian community, which had started a small circle of Garveyites right here in this community. Now, we can't point at an actual Liberty Hall nowadays, and the reason why we can't do that is because it's changed. Okay, gentrification, demographically, Northeastern University has bought up a lot of the area around there, so the original facade and the infrastructurally, it has changed so much that we're in the area and we gotta basically break down what was here at a certain time, because it definitely doesn't look the same anymore. But this is an area that is rich with so much history, I mean, of the Caribbean and African American community and experiences here. That's why it's called Frederick Douglass Square. Notice Frederick Douglass had a lot of work that he did, not only in Boston, Mass., but also in New Bedford, Mass., and coming up and starting what was called the first African meeting house. Frederick Douglass started what was called the first African meeting house, which is now on Warren Street in Boston, but was right here. Harriet Tubman, and the 12th Baptist Church, which was initially on Charlotte Ave, which was down this way. If you can, you can't really see it, but it's in this direction. This is Lenox Street Projects. On that end was a church that they would bring slaves in the Underground Railroad for refuge. So a lot of people coming up from the South, a lot of people coming here from the Caribbean, spawned what would become historically one of the oldest black communities in the country. And out of this black community produced some great people, one of which is Louis Eugene Walcott, who is now known as the great Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Harriet Tubman, once again. Frederick Douglass, although W.E.B. Du Bois is not initially born in Boston, he has a lot of historical relevance in Boston as well. He was born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, in Western Mass, Great Barrington, Massachusetts, but has a lot of historicity right here on the grounds, boots on the ground in Boston. Yeah, we may not agree with everything ideologically, methodologically with him, but he is a one at his time who did produce some great ideology and impact and provoke great thought. Okay, but he also had a historical relevance right here in Lower Roxbury, in other parts of Boston, and in other parts of America, in other parts in general. But many of those humble roots in the beginning were right here. You see, when Farrakhan joined the Nation of Islam as Louis X, and he was introduced to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right here in the city of Boston, in Roxbury, through Malcolm X, right? You know what I'm saying? In doing that, he joined in 1955. He went into Mosque number 11, which was initially on Interville Street, a street known as Interville Street, which Mosque number 11 that Malcolm X set up was here. Him meeting Malcolm X right on these same streets, right in this same historic neighborhood, is what took place to create a synergy that would evolve into one of the greatest legacies of one of the greatest inspirers and reformers and leaders and teachers ever. You know what I mean? But since we're here on location in Boston, Mass., it's imperative to bring you to right where it all started for the great man that we call the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You know, right here, Lower Roxbury, Frederick Douglass Square. And as we get around Boston and show you a lot more historical landmarks and connect the dots for you on other levels, you'll see the connectivity between so many different greats. Not only that, Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, right here, Lower Roxbury, has historical relevance. Right here, has done a lot in this city in a lot of his humble beginnings before he became the great iconic, world-renowned, known Dr. Martin Luther King that everybody knows and loves for his great sacrifices, whether we agree ideologically with everything or not that he stood for. A lot of his historic relevance, formative years, and developmentation into greatness took place not only in Lower Roxbury, but in Boston in general. But a lot of his humble beginnings and him meeting Claretta Scott King, and building the foundation that they had that would turn into a whole nother other legacy in and of itself took place right here in Lower Roxbury, not far from Frederick Douglass Square. So what we do and what we like to do in the interest of education and edification of our people, right, on this platform on BABATV, is not only tell you about it, but walk you through it, walk you to it, and bring it live to you, all right? So as we travel around the city and get more of this information, stay tuned. We on the journey. Walk with us, people. Peace, love, and light.